Namaste and welcome to the Hindu Dharma Basics and Beyond podcast, a podcast that is based on the book by the same name by Swami Viditatmananda Saraswati. This podcast answers your questions about Hindu Dharma, a wholesome, holistic way of life based on the vision of non duality. I'm Swamini Tattva Vidyananda, a Hindu monk and a teacher of Vedanta, the wisdom that liberates. Come, let's explore together this ancient wisdom and way of life that makes our life meaningful and seeks to bring out the beauty, love, and kindness inherent in each of us. In today's episode, we begin the broad topic of Hindu scriptures and epics. Under this topic, we will look at the answers to three questions today. What are the sacred books of the Hindus? What is broadly the subject matter of the Vedas? What does a Vedic lifestyle mean? What are the sacred books of the Hindus? The sacred books of the Hindus are the Vedas. The word Veda is derived from the root Vid, which means to know. The Vedas are thus books of knowledge. They contain the various mantras which are considered to reveal the nature of truth and encapsulate the eternal values. To Hindus, the truth that is revealed is more important than the one who reveals it. For this reason, even though most people do not know the sages through whom these mantras were revealed, the teaching is revered and held sacred. Vedas have been classified in four as the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, and the Atharva Veda. Each Veda has four subdivisions. 1. The Samhitas, which contain the mantras and benedictions. 2. The Aranyakas, which are texts on rituals, ceremonies, sacrifices, and symbolic sacrifices. 3. The Brahmanas, which are commentaries on rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices. And 4. The Upanishads, which are texts revealing the knowledge of the self being whole and free. Traditionally, the Vedas are called Shruti, which means that which is heard. In the ancient times, this scriptural knowledge was taught and passed on to the students orally. The first section of each Veda is called Karma Kanda. It deals with dharma or the righteous way of living, which is also a life that is required to maintain the order of harmony, harmony within us, and harmony with all forms of life. In other words, it deals with karma or activity. The second section is called the Jnana Kanda. It deals with knowledge of Brahman, which is God or the truth. There are two other important works of literature in Hinduism called Smritis and Puranas. Smriti explains and interprets the Vedic truths to help common people understand and follow these truths. Smriti means memory. Remembrance or memory is based on experience. After all, we can only remember what we have experienced. Smriti literature describes in simpler words the truth experienced by great sages so the common people understand the teaching. There are 18 Smritis, of which the Manu Smriti or the Code of Manu is the most famous. Some other well known Smritis are the teachings of Yajnavalkya, Parashara, and Gautama. Puranas are mythological literature. They are symbolic depictions of the truths found in the Vedas in form of stories. These stories speak of the incarnations of God, the devotees of God, the saints and kings, and the good and evil people. There are 18 major Puranas and 18 minor Puranas. The 18 major Puranas are the Brahma Purana, the Padma Purana, the Vishnu Purana, the Shiva Purana, the Devi Bhagavata, the Narada Purana, the Markandeya Purana, the Agneya Purana, the Bhavishya Purana, the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, the Linga Purana, the Varaha Purana, the Skanda Purana, the Vamana Purana, the Kurma Purana, the Matsya Purana, the Garuda Purana, and the Brahmanda Purana. The Shruti, Smritis, and the Puranas are the threefold philosophical, religious, and mythological literature upon which Hinduism is largely based. The nature of practice of Hinduism has evolved over time, but the core principles and values remain unchanged. There have been many philosophers and teachers along the ages at different times who have left their mark on Hinduism by their unique ways of teaching the truth. Their works are also looked upon as authentic and important. What is the subject matter of the Vedas? Hindu scriptures, which are based on the Vedas, reveal three things. One, the nature of God. Two, the nature of the universe. And three, the nature of the individual. They reveal the truth about God and the true nature of the individual's relationship with the world and with God. They also tell us how to live a life that reflects the glory of God through a life of Dharma. The two main subjects discussed in the Vedas are Brahman and Dharma. Brahman is another name for God, who is the infinite, limitless, essential reality of life. Dharma is the righteous way of life that is in keeping with this reality. When one lives life in harmony with God, there is harmony within oneself and with all of life. The Vedas teach us how to live a life that is conducive to both happiness and growth, and a life that culminates in recognition of one's innate freedom, which is essentially freedom from any form of suffering. Vedas reveal that the truth, which is synonymous with freedom and wholeness, is not separate from the individual. Fullness and freedom is one's own true nature. And yet, one feels separation from this truth due to ignorance of one's true nature. Ignorance brings about many false notions, complexes, and perceptions. A life of dharma helps a person to slowly shed the ignorance. In living a life of dharma, the mind becomes sattvika or pure, perceptions become clearer, and emotions become more mature. In due course, as the person matures, the person is ready to devote himself or herself exclusively to the pursuit of knowledge and truth. What does a Vedic lifestyle mean? The Vedas teach of two ways of life, one being a life of activity and the other a life of contemplation. The Vedic life of activity or pravritti is a religious dharmic life centered on Ishvara or God. The values and attitudes with which the Vedic person lives his or her life are based on trust in Ishvara being the essential truth or reality of life. It is necessary for every individual to be active in a way that is conducive to his or her personal growth and contribution to society. The Veda encourages both personal growth and contribution to society. One can have high ambitions or aspire for material wealth even while following a dharmic way of life. The Karma Kanda contains instructions about various rituals and various codes of conduct that make our lives worshipful and prayerful. It teaches of a way of life that acknowledges four main attributes. 1. Responsibility and sensitivity to one's place in the universe. 2. A sense of gratitude. 3. The grace that is enjoyed. And 4. Making us aware of how to make a contribution in response to the privileges that we enjoy. Vedas teach us a beautiful way of life. When a person lives a life in tune with the universal harmony, consciously and intelligently, she or he comes to a point when all activities have served its paramount purpose, which is gaining emotional maturity and purity of mind. Such a mind develops a keen desire for knowledge of the true self. The individual is now ready to embrace a life committed to the pursuit of self knowledge, a life of contemplation, or a life of nivritti, cessation of activity. Sometimes this is called a life of renunciation. Thus, the first stage of life consists of being worshipful, and the second stage is devoted to knowing God or the true self. I hope this episode contributed to greater clarity about Hindu Dharma. If you have any questions about what was shared in this episode, you may write to me at hindudharmabasics@gmail.com. In our next episode, we continue with the topic of Hindu scriptures and we'll look at the answers to: are Vedic do's and don'ts mandates for life? Can you tell us more about the Smritis? Can you tell us more about the Puranas? And if we have time, what are the Upanishads, their origin and place in Hindu philosophy? We end with a prayer. Asatoma Satgamaya. O Lord, lead me from untruth to truth. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Lead me from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Lead me from death to immortality. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Satyameva Jayate. Truth alone conquers.